morning, everybody.
I was proactive.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to see everybody this morning. Again, I appreciate you making it here today. This is our monthly Coffee with the Community series hosted by Liberty Public Schools. And as I mentioned in the last few months, we wanted to make it a point to try to get out into the community for a few of these meetings this year, and want to thank Sarah Cook and everyone here with the City of Liberty for having us here in the City Hall chambers this morning, and appreciate all their support. This month, we are going to hear from our Liberty Public Schools Director of Safety and Security, Mr. Gary Majors, and he will introduce himself. Gary is now beginning his second year as our district full-time safety and security director. Gary's one of those guys that it feels like he's been working here about 20 years, and he's just been here over a year. He's a great guy, and we give each other a hard time, but I cannot tell you how much I appreciate having him as a part of our team. He is amazing, and he will take you through a summary of the work I'm sure that he's been doing over the course of the last year. I'm sure he's also going to mention this. We'll hear from Dr. Tucker, our superintendent, to close this morning, but I see many of our local emergency personnel in the room, and we appreciate all the work that you do to support our district. So let's give them a round of applause to begin. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gary Majors, who will take us through a presentation over the course of the next 20, 25 minutes.
You're stretching it. It's probably going to be more like about 10 or 15. I do come to the district for those that don't know me, I come by the district by way of the police department, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. I was on there about 28 years. I was Major Majors there. Somebody brought that up earlier. I could never get away from it. Don't really want to. And then we also worked for KC Public Schools for a while before coming over here. So I am biased when it comes to emergency services people. I have a father who retired from the police department, a son who's a detective, a brother who's a sergeant, a sister who's a dispatcher. So it is a family business, and it is something that we take very seriously. The one thing that people ask me as I'm out running into old people I used to work with and stuff, and they say, how do you like it in Liberty? And I've said this a lot, and I mean it, it's been a great experience for me. And I think what I like best about it truly is the people that I work with. Yes, including Dallas, but the point is I do, and what I think I enjoy most about it is coming to a district where everybody does take security seriously. They are responsible with it. They're not crazy about it, or they fear every day they walk into a building, but they're open to suggestions, they're open to looking at new things, they're open to working with us, and that's done really well by me. It's made my job a whole lot easier, and I appreciate it. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do, what we've done over the last year. I think we've accomplished a lot, and where we're looking at going in the near future. And I really want to talk about none of that being possible without the cooperation of a lot of the people that you see in this room, and we'll chat about that. So have you ever been to a show where we're watching a movie with somebody who's already seen it, and you sit down and the first thing they do is they tell you the ending and they spoil it? Well, I'm going to spoil it for you because I'm going to give you the end of it best. Your child, where is your child the safest? And the answer is really, it's in the schools. They really are safe in your schools. I know we see a lot, we hear a lot, we see every little incident that we see anywhere in the world we see on the news every night, and so that makes us think that it's just going to happen tomorrow. And although we want to be prepared for that, the reality is your child is really safer in school than just about anywhere. I put Joe Friday up here because we're going to show you just a few facts, and I had to explain to a lot of people who this guy was, so sorry. So statistically speaking, there hasn't been a death of a child in a school from a fire since 1958. And you have to give the credit, a lot of that, to the fire department. If you think about the changes that they've made since 1958, you cannot walk in any public building without seeing those exit signs lit. At the end of the world, those things will be lit for another 100 years, I'm convinced. Or you can't walk down a hallway without a fire pool. You would have a hard time setting anything in this room on fire, because when you build a public building, you have to have fire retardant sheetrock and carpeting and material and whatever. So they've made it, and you have to give the fire department, they get an A+ if you're going to give them a grade over the last half century or so about making those improvements, and it's shown that it has worked very, very well. Active shooter intruding. intruder. That's the one everybody's worried about. They see it on the news and they're just convinced that it's going to happen any moment. But actually, statistics from the Department of Justice will show you that for a particular student being shot in a school, the odds are about 1 in 7.8 million. That's what the odds. So does it happen? It does. But does it happen very often? Not nearly as much as we think it does. The odds of somebody being struck by lightning is 1 in a million as a comparison. Does anybody know somebody's been struck by lightning? All right, those that got your hands up, how many people now, do you know 2 people that have been struck by lightning? Just 1? Yeah, I know a guy actually been struck by lightning twice, both times on a golf course. That's funny when the clouds start coming in and see what he does. But the reality of it is that even struck by lightning is 1 in a million. So a couple of us know somebody that's happened to once. Nobody knows that it's happened to anybody twice, and then yet it's almost 8 times more likely than being in a school and being shot in the school from an active shooter. So the odds are low. That doesn't mean we don't prepare for it, but just to let you know how safe your kids really are. The odds of actually dying from a gunshot wound in a school is 1 in 15 million. So it's even more remote. But parents get concerned. If you don't think that they do over stuff that's like this, is how many calls have you fielded about clowns in the last 2 weeks? Right, absolutely. I was told to stay away from that. Natural disasters, again, Steve Anderson, chief operating officers, they build buildings. They did the add-on to Liberty North and whatever. And a large part of that whole architectural planning is how to withstand a tornado or, again, fire or any other type of natural disaster. So because of that, the death from that happening, those numbers have really went down over the years. Same with accidental death and injury. We just have made a lot of improvements. And although the risks are low, like I said, they're still present, and we continue to research and implement safety procedures here in Liberty to further reduce those occurrences or the chances of those from ever occurring at all. And the key thing is the we. It's not one person that does it. It's not one department that does it. It is very much a cooperative effort. And here's some of the partners that I work with almost on a daily basis. And I know the chief is here, and I appreciate that. He has some of his command staff here. I had breakfast with him yesterday. I was on the phone with him the day before. I actually met with him the day before. Kyle, I can never get too far away from. Our SROs do a wonderful job in the back. The major Weinbrenner in the back is always, it's what I appreciate the most. Same with the fire chief. It's never but a phone call away, and they're right there for us, giving us whatever we want. We work a lot with the Northland Coalition. We've done some work with local churches. Both they've helped us out and we've helped them out. We helped one church with some recommendations on radios, and I think Kyle went out and did an active shooter training for them, and other churches have volunteered to give us space if we have to relocate in an emergency. I went to meet with them to look at a space, and when I walked out, they had given me the key and the code to their building and the whole 9 yards. It's in the glove box of my pickup truck. So the cooperation within our community has been phenomenal as we move through there. LAFI, I was at their meeting yesterday, Liberty Alliance for Youth, looking at ways to educate both parents and students on the dangers of alcohol, tobacco, and drugs, and they've done a wonderful job for us as well. Center for Educational Safety, we actually got a grant from them last year, which is what helped us put in our visitor pass management system. So we try to reach out as far, and we turn nobody away that wants to come and help us in any way they can. One that I forgot there was other Liberty Public School departments. I can't stress this enough. This is what I like best about this organization. There is no silos that I see. I'm able to make a call. I look across the room. I look at every single person that's sitting here from Liberty Public Schools. There's not a single person that within the last probably month that I haven't made a phone call to is saying, hey, help me out and figure this out, and that I haven't had immediate response to do it. They all have the same goal in mind. It's all centered around the student and that educational environment, and I really appreciate that. So collaboration is the key. We have several committees that we accomplish this with. We have a safety and security committee. We have school leadership from elementary, middle school, high schools, maintenance, health service, transportation, athletics, and other school staff. And as we come up with these fabulous ideas on how we're going to make things safe, we also don't want to do something that's going to really hinder a lot of people. So I run a lot of these through this committee saying, hey, what do you think? When we rolled out the visitor pass management system, for example, and when we rolled out the training for the active shooter training, we ran it through this committee. And with input from everybody, we get a lot more acceptance, and we get a lot of minds around it that helps us build a better mousetrap, if you will, and it's worked out very well for us. We have a Safe Schools Task Force from Liberty, and again, the chief, this is something, I think our first meeting even, he came to me and said, this is something we had years ago, and we think it's something we would like to get going again. Would you mind trying to put this together? So we meet, is it quarterly, Chief, now? And with these different entities, and we all get around and we just talk about any issues that really involve the school districts. And it's really them coming to us saying, how can we help you? And us saying, how can we help you? And as a result of that, one good example I have is the parade. I mean, I know the parade is from Liberty High School, was a long time tradition here, but as the city grew and the traffic swelled, as it does in a town like this, it became unsafe to take the route that they had taken for years, and to the point that the chief even admits, I had to kind of play the bad guy and say, this isn't safe for our kids. But we didn't want to eliminate it, and so we worked together and came up with a great route that works for everybody. The kids still get to parade, he gets to keep people safe, and it's a win-win for everybody. So that's just one example of how this committee has really helped us out. We have a much larger group, that Safe Schools Task Force in the Northland, which is like that Liberty one, except this is everybody. Kyle, you go to that. How many people do you think show up to that meeting?
100.
100, I would say. So we're talking North Kansas City, Platte County, Smithville, Kearney, pretty much anybody north of the river, as far as you can think. And it's not only people like myself and SROs like Kyle, but it's also school administrators, vice principals show up to it. This has really come into play. FBI, Homeland Security, and DEA are there. And just at the very last meeting, we had somebody from the FBI talking about an intelligence database that they have, and it just so happens the very next day I had a reason to call it into use. And because of this, I knew exactly who to call, and I got an immediate response. Just a Facebook something that happened, and I wanted them to check it out to make sure there was nothing to it, and they were glad to do it for us. So, real quickly, just a quick year in a review. That somebody says it felt like I've been here 20 years. It felt like it to me, too. We did a lot of work last year, and I'm very proud of a lot of what we did. One of the things we did was the Sprigio, which is a bully reporting system. We had a couple different systems depending on what school you walked into, and we wanted something that was pretty much across the board so you could have it with you no matter what school you were in. This is where it's on every school website or the district's website, and you can go under and click on it. Kids can report anonymous bullying, and we do get a lot of reports. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Some definition of bullying is different than ours. So, I mean, when a 7th grader says, I'm being bullied because they're making me eat chicken nuggets yet again today, we look into it, but we pretty quickly dismiss it. So, but through this system, we've identified 3 or 4 kids who was reported, who talked to somebody about suicide, and that person was concerned, and this is how they chose to report it. And we were able to take intervention right away. There has been instances where somebody report, hey, I haven't been bullied, but I hear Lynn's been picking on everybody in the back row, and we were able to address that before it really grew out of control and anybody really got hurt. So it's really worked pretty well. We're still advertising it. We're still getting it out there. It depends on what school you're in, about how much it's being used. It was just at the middle school and high school level. We brought it in, I think, last January. We just took it over to Lillian Schumacher. We're going to try it in the elementary school just to see how much use that it gets, and if it gets quite a bit of use or enough that we think it warrants it, we'll probably move it out to even the elementary schools. It's been a pretty good system. Hall Pass, this has been a great deal for us. This is where when you come into a school, you run your ID through a system. It does an instant background check on you to make sure you're not on a sexual predator list. They check like 750 databases across the country, and then they shoot it back to us. We can also put people that we may have on a no trespass list because of past behavior. We can put all kinds of stuff on there. It also does a lot of other stuff. It can track volunteer hours. It makes the whole process a whole lot easier. We've actually had a couple times where this has went off this year. To be honest, I'll tell you a story. I won't tell you where, but we had a vendor who was coming in to work on one of our pieces of equipment, and they had him do it, and he came back on the sexual offenders list. And so they hollered at me real quick. I went over and talked to him, and he said, yeah, I'm on that list. And but we would have never known had it not been for this. So it works really well for us. And I got to be honest, it's been very well received at the schools, and I would say 99.9% of the parents have even said thank you for having it. So very few people really object to it. Active shooter and tutor training. This is something that's mandated by the state. It's something we started a couple years ago. Kyle Hamline in the back of the room has helped us immensely with this. Conducted this year, we did it at each school, and so we could address very specific concerns. Last year we had 2,000 people we trained in 3 sessions, and it was quite the training. And this year we went out to the individual schools, because what we heard a lot after last year's training was great training, but it won't work in my school because. And so this year we went to the schools, we kind of did a quick refresher and said, tell us why it won't work here. And when they told us, we went and showed them where they were wrong, because it will work. You just have to realize what your surroundings are. So that worked out really well. We did something new this year. The bus drivers came to us and said, this is all great training. We're not in a classroom, we're not in an office, we're on a bus. How does this work on a bus? So we actually went out there this year and spent about 4 hours. We set up 5 different buses with training scenarios. We actually showed them how it will work on the bus, and so they feel much more comfortable now. Again, the odds of it happening are extremely low, but just feeling comfortable that I have a plan should it happen could make all the difference in the world. Critical incident management training is something near and dear to my heart. It's something I did while I was on the police department, and it's really how to handle a critical incident. I'll tell you what, every one of our principals are so dedicated to the kids. They're so protective of the kids they have in their school. I've yet to meet one that's not. Their biggest fear is, what if I make it worse? What if I don't do the right thing and somebody gets hurt? Or what if I make a mistake and I don't handle the situation right? This is a system that was initially started by the fire department, quickly stolen and made much better by the police department. I could be biased about that, I don't know. But the reality of it is, it's a quick, easy way to manage a situation, and we gave training to every one of our principals and vice principals this year, and many of our directors, and it's a way to quickly assess what's going on, quickly delegate authority, and handle the situation very quickly. We've already had a couple instances where we've had to use it this year after the training, and I got some very positive feedback. We're not done with this. This is something that'll be ongoing. I'm a big fan of it. We did building-specific security audits, went out and spoke with each principal, walked their buildings, said, hey, where's your concerns? We want to hear from you where your concerns are. Found out a lot of stuff that I didn't know. Something, well, this is this. It's been that way for a long time. I said something 3 years ago, and I don't know whatever happened to it. So we were able to bring that back up, work very closely with Steve Aldridge on the maintenance side of things to get a lot of that done, and Trey Kratzer on technology to address a lot of those concerns. And we're not 100% yet, but we've made a lot of progress on that. The upcoming year, so we're working on an incident report documenting system so we can do a better job of capturing information and maintaining it for future reference. And a lot of times there's historical stuff that really makes a decision, should help play into the decision making that you're making on something that happens today. And we just want to make sure we have a good way of capturing that. We're going to do some, hopefully, revision and training for threat assessments. You know, one of the biggest things that we can do to prevent an active shooter, and this is, I'll give a hint to those in the room that'll have to go through the active shooter training next year, this is where we're going to focus, is not so much to do once the active shooters start, but what can we do to prevent the active shooter from ever taking place? And a lot of that is when something small starts, is being very good at threat assessments, and that's something that we're going to be looking at. I took a day off a couple weeks ago, and when I came back, I was in charge of the hazmat stuff for the district. I haven't been off a day since, so it worked, Steve. So we're looking at what we're doing with hazmat. We're a lot farther along than I thought we were on that. We're doing a really good job, but we may look at a little bit further of those procedures and training to make sure we're in compliance and keeping everybody safe that way. Like I said, a lot of this is, again, more training that we're going to do. We're looking at taking some of the of that critical incident management stuff and automating it. So right now it's in a manual, school-specific manual. We'll do that to where it's available on a cell phone or an iPad. We're looking at doing that. And we just started, I just had a conversation with, there's somebody like me in almost every district. And I use them all the time. I call them up and say, how are you guys doing this? Or they call me, how are you doing this? We're actually going to start maybe a monthly or quarterly meeting of all those safety and security directors like myself. I think that'll help us a lot. How can the community help? Because I know you want to. Continue to be part of the team. There's a lot of people we work with in the community. A lot of people call me all the time. They're not bashful. Wish more did it. Make sure that you report concerns. We really push if you get that funny feeling, you got to follow that funny feeling, and because there's a reason why you feel that way, and don't just dismiss it. Share thoughts and suggestions. Be safety minded. And that was quick, I know. But does anybody have any questions? Concerns? It's all you, Dallas. Or Dr. Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Majors,
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Appreciate that. As I was sitting and listening, reflecting on what he was sharing, we all have a common thread that links us all together. And so for our city staff and police department, fire department, and even for parents, in that we're in the business of people. Just so happens that the reason we're gathered here this morning is that we're in the business of kids as well and ensuring safe and secure schools and safe and secure communities. So as Gary mentioned, thank you to each of you for the partnership that you bring to the conversation and the work that we do alongside each other in ensuring that we have a great community, but then certainly have safe schools. As he shared as well, opportunities to partner further. One of the things that we've talked about as a Board of Education, I appreciate Andy and Kent being here from our board, is engagement. And how can we increase engagement to do two things? One, to be able to share the work that we're doing as a district or the considerations that we have of things that we would like to do, whether it's in safety and security or academically. But then at the same time, we also want to, secondly, solicit feedback and your ideas, things that you have as concerns or things that perhaps you've thought of might be useful to the district and to the work that we do on behalf of, as we said earlier, every single one of our kids. As Gary was speaking, I also thought of something in that several of us from the District Administration Center, as we carry our cell phones, get alerted to every 911 call that takes place in the district. And so as we hear the fire alarms or we hear the sirens going off, we check our voicemails, we see the calls come through. Some are missed dials, but then certainly there are those that are situations that we need to attend to. More often than not at the building level, or whether it's at a playing field or in a gym as activities are taking place, in those critical situations, we have staff, whether they're school nurses, to principals, to coaches, to whomever, that come alongside kids in whatever circumstance they face. Oftentimes, if it's a medical circumstance, going with them to a hospital until mom or dad are able to make it there. And again, we're people-centered, we're kid-centered. That's the work that we do. I also get on occasion a Sprigio report, and I happened to get one the other day that I thought I would share with you, and I won't tell you the names, but you can probably figure it out. And there's 4 or 5 different criteria in those Sprigio reports, and one of them is a description. And it said simply this: she was saying bad things about him, and he was saying bad things about her. And then it said, who were the witnesses? And it said, the entire United States of America. It happened to be a student that filed a Sprigio report following one of our presidential debates. So on occasion we get some humorous ones, but certainly we do tend to deal with those on a regular basis. A couple of quick updates from the district. From a Board of Education standpoint, we're getting ready to continue the conversations in and around long-range planning. We did that diligently several years ago. We went through about a $60 million bond issue, as many of you are aware. Spent the last couple of summers wrapping that up. We've had a very brief reprieve in that now we're getting ready to continue with that. Over the summer, we had a series of assessments conducted at every single one of our campuses. We have 19 campuses, 11 elementary schools, 4 middle-level schools, 2 high schools, an early childhood center, as well as Liberty Academy, which is our alternative school setting. And so we went through and assessed those spaces for where they're at in terms of capacity, ability to grow, and then we'll continue to develop planning criteria to inform the next phases of our long-range planning. So we'll be working with the Board of Education as that develops our priorities, but then certainly looking to engage our community as well in those conversations. And what do we envision about Liberty Public Schools? A companion piece to that we've shared before is the work that the Board of Education has done in and around managing our debt. And that we've spent a lot of time over the last year with the help of Cindy Sullivan and our finance team, to be able to look at our debt structure and ascertain whether or not in future years we would be able to put issues before our voters that are a no tax levy increase. And we're incredibly hopeful that the next 2, if not possibly 3 issues, we would be able to put to our voters as a no tax levy increase. That's due to the refinancing, the restructuring, taking advantage of interest rates that we've been able to do over the course of the last year. So a lot of our work not only focuses on the classroom, but certainly what's to come as we look long range and we envision those possibilities for Liberty Public Schools. With those vision priorities, we've shared them before, but I want to reiterate them this morning. It's how do we focus on relationships in the context of 21st century learning, where sometimes that teacher is at the front of a classroom, other times that teacher is working alongside a student more as a mentor or a coach, perhaps on a project that they're working on in the community. How do we take advantage of informed decision making through the data that we have in front of us, let alone the best practices that research brings to us? The third piece to that is how do we personalize that learning experience to ensure that we are truly learner-centered. We have a tremendous amount to celebrate within our schools and our community, but the reality of it is we can always do better. And you'll hear me say that periodically. We are a work in progress to ensure that we're challenging our most gifted students, but then also serving those students who we've identified as underserved. The fourth category is learner agency. And learner agency has everything to do with voice and choice. How can I tap into students' voice? By garnering their feedback about their experiences from our youngest learners all the way to our getting ready to graduate learners. But then also with that is the choice component, and that how can we tap into students' passions and interests, hook them early on, and get them grounded into something that they may want to pursue as a career or perhaps explore. Maybe they'll shift and change their mind, but we want to try to get them earlier on in engaging in their passions and their interests. And the last thing, whether it's a board member or a superintendent of schools or a pre-K student, how do we foster that growth mindset? And that we probably won't ever get to a point where we have it all figured out, but we want to continue that growth mindset as we continue to grow and learn together. So thank you for being here this morning. Appreciate the participation. It's been great. Thank you to Mr. Majors and Dallas for helping put this together. Would certainly open it up to any questions that anyone here in the audience has for us this morning. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, as a mother of a daughter from a kindergartner in Ridgeview, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Just getting started. So we're going to have a lot of time together. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn? We'll be around, so feel free to stick around. And again, thank you to the city, the fire department, police department, everyone that's helped put this together. And again, we truly, truly, truly appreciate the partnership that we have with you. So have a great rest of the week.
How are you? Good to see you. Good. I don't know if we've ever truly been introduced. I'm Jennifer Corman. Executive